sports car in Australia has never been so easy. And with the latest incarnation of the Chevrolet Corvette, it's also never been so much fun. However, considering the amount of choice we have in the busy sports car market, would you really risk buying a conversion? Gone are the days when American sports cars were renowned for their straight-line performance and little else. This Corvette C7 Stingray features a light, stiff space frame for optimal 50-50 weight distribution and impressive power-to-weight ratio. Let's take a closer look at this particular example, which is converted to right-hand drive by the folks at Performax, the best-known people in the conversion business. Now, apart from looking completely different to its predecessor, this 7th generation Corvette also marks the return of the famous Stingray name, which we haven't seen since the 3rd generation in 1976. From the outside, it is of course basically identical to the American version, so it's the inside that does the talking. They say the highest praise you can give a conversion is if you can't tell that it's been converted, and I do certainly think that's the case with this car. Now, I have driven this exact model Corvette in the States last year, and had I picked up this particular car this morning and was told that it was a factory right-hand drive Corvette, I'm really not sure I would have been able to tell them apart. Of course, the dash and the texture of the moldings may not be 100% the same as factory, but considering the work required to move the steering wheel from there to here, I think they've done a really good job here. What has definitely stayed the same in the conversion process is the naturally aspirated V8. Though it shares the same 6.2 litre capacity and compression ratio as the well-loved LS3, the heart of the new Corvette is in fact the all-new LT1, which is the 1st generation V small block engine. In this example, there is 339 kilowatts of power and 624 newton meters of torque, and Corvette claims a 0 to 100 time of under 4 seconds. And the price? $180,000. Look, I know what you're thinking. You can definitely buy one of these in the States for about $60,000 US, or on today's exchange rate, about 80,000 Australian. So why the hell does this cost so much? Of course, that's if you want Performax to do the whole process. If you buy one yourself and bring it to Australia, the actual conversion job is only around $60,000. But to give you some more perspective, a base Porsche 911 costs only 85,000 US dollars, or about 115,000 in our money. Come to Australia though, and it's about 220,000 plus on roads. So when it comes to converting US pricing to Australian, it really doesn't make all that much sense unless you consider all the associated taxes, including luxury car tax. It takes roughly 7 to 8 weeks to convert one of these to right-hand drive, with the work carried out by more than a dozen people at the company's factory in Gympie. Now when you think about it, that's really not that long considering the amount of work involved. But seriously, the main reason you'd buy a Corvette is for this. It turns heads everywhere it goes. Plus, while every man and his dog seems to own a German or Italian sports car, how often do you see one of these driving around? I suppose the argument against Corvettes and American muscle cars in general has always been their archaic suspension and engineering setup. So when it comes to anything but a straight line, they've never really been all that good. But in this car, that couldn't be further from the truth. Now of course, I can get into all the technical details of why this car is so good, or I could just go around some corners really fast and let the car talk for itself. Now I'm pushing this pretty hard around some very tight and twisty roads, and I have to say I'm very impressed with not only the rear grip, but also the grip from the front tyres. It doesn't understeer, and although there's a bit of tendency to oversteer, it's a lot of fun to drive fast. And if you do just want to cruise about town, this does have a really nice naturally aspirated V8 note. Although, I'm not even going to bother to mention the fuel economy, because if that's even a consideration for you, you really shouldn't be watching this. There's a lot of love about the Corvette, but it's also not a perfect car. I'll give you some examples. This infotainment system, it's rubbish. Honestly, it's one of the worst systems I have ever used. Also, there is a lot of drone in this car, particularly at low speed. When you're traveling at under 10 k's an hour, the vibration is almost deafening. And what about these paddle shifters? I mean, for God's sake, we're driving a manual car. That could not be more American. As far as ride comfort goes, this definitely isn't the sort of car I like to drive from Brisbane to Sydney. However, it is a sports car, so you do have to live with some compromises, and in that regard, I think you could, and certainly I would find it easy to drive day in, day out. So, should you buy this car? It's hard to say. Look, it's fun, it's fast, and it sounds pretty good. It also gets as many looks as any supercar I've ever been in. But it's definitely not at the levels of even a BMW M4 or a Mercedes-AMG C63, whether that's in terms of driving dynamics or the technology that goes inside the cabin or under the bonnet. Then again, it doesn't really have to match its German competitors, because it's a Corvette. This is an American icon, and it finally has the dynamic capability to match its brawn. But at $180,000, you really do have to love one to own one.